Welcome to Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon. I am your host, Captain Matt, and today we are talking the 10 ways to spot that newbie boat on the water. So if you are an experienced boater, I would love to hear what makes you say, hey, that's a noob over there. And if you're a new boater, these are some things that you may want to avoid. Or if you're like me, say, hey, screw it. I don't care who thinks I'm new. I'm going to boat my way. But these are some things that you may not have considered, and hopefully they can help you avoid some issues. So number one, this is probably the biggest one if you are on a chat room or Facebook or somewhere like that, and you see a boat that is running down the waterway with their fenders out. You see it on Facebook all the time and chat rooms all the time. This drives experienced boaters crazy. I don't know why. Who cares? But if you're a newbie boater, if you're new to boating or you're thinking about boating, here's something to consider. Is one, those fenders will splash water up and get people on your boat wet unnecessarily. And number two, it's very likely that at some point a fender is going to fall off. A knot's going to come undone. It's going to come off from the cleat, and that fender is going to be lost forever. And every now and again, you'll see them floating down the lake or the river or the inlet or the waterway, wherever you are. So I prefer to clear off the fenders in most cases. If I'm doing a quick run somewhere, just over to a friend's house or whatever, I might leave them out if it's not splashing up. Or sometimes even I just forget after 40 years of boating. Sometimes I just forget. You're excited to get out of the water. You got everybody in the boat, the kids in their life jackets and ready to get out on the tube or whatever, and you forget to take them off. Just stop, pull them in, and it'll make everybody drier, and it'll avoid the people pointing, look at that noob going down the lake. So that is number one. Number two, it's kind of funny that it relates to the same thing, but if you call a fender, which is the official boater term, if you call it a bumper, it acts as a bumper, it acts as a fender, but the proper boating term is fender, and for whatever reason, this drives experienced boaters crazy as to hear the word bumper. It is some old salt is going to go just turn over if he hears somebody call a fender a bumper. I don't really give a crap what you call it. You know what it is, you know what it does, and if they want to be kind of an ass, that's fine, or a boat hole, as I call them. This is something, deck is on a boat, the floor is a deck. I get crap all the time. I get comments in my YouTube channel that I'll refer to it as a floor. And oh, those experienced boaters love to get out and tell me how wrong my terminology is. It's a deck, it's not a floor. Well, everybody knows what I'm saying. Everybody knows what you're saying when you're talking about it. Some people just have to be smarter than everybody else, and that's fine. Let them be smarter. But if you want to use the proper term, it is deck instead of floor. Same thing with rope. When it's on a boat, it's no longer a rope, it's a line, it's a dock line, or it's a road if it's on an anchor. The anchor road is the rope that ties off on your anchor. It's not the anchor rope. Again, everybody knows what you mean, but some boaters think it's hysterical, or they want to let you know how much smarter they are than you if you call it a rope. Left and right, nope. It's port and starboard on a boat. Now, this actually has some practical purposes because it depends on which way you're standing, left and right. So if somebody says you need to go to the left, depending on which way they're standing, could turn which way you need to go. So port and starboard is correct. Port, 4 letters, is same 4 letters as left, so port is left, starboard is longer, right is longer, so starboard is right. If you really need to know, that's a good way to remember it. I don't think I have ever used port and starboard in my general conversation on the boat, but I do know it, and it's something that could be helpful for you if you're running bigger boats and you're working as a team. And the other one, this is one that I notice all the time, that I can tell if somebody's newer to boating or doesn't know boats as well. They call a stern drive or an inboard outboard, like a Mercruiser or a Volvo. They'll call it an inboard because the engine is in a boat, but technically it's an inboard outboard because the engine is in the boat, but the drive is out of the boat. A true inboard, the whole engine is inside the transmission, and there's just a shaft that runs out the boat. You can watch some of my other videos on different types of boats. The first time boater videos all go into that. and explain the difference. But again, something that if you use the right terminology, nobody will have any idea. If you call it a fender and a deck and you talk about lines and your anchor rode and you use port and starboard, nobody will know that you just got into boating. By the way, we're brought to you by the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon. You can grab the Boat Buyer's Toolkit, been downloaded over 2,500 times. That's probably more now. We get several downloads every day. Subscribers were over 5,800 and 675,000 video views. So go check out the over 100 videos that we've got: pontoons, deck boats, cruisers, center consoles, aluminum fishing boats, first-time buyers, some fun videos. We've got articles at the website, boatbuyersecretweapon.com, and the podcast is going into our second season, and you can check that out anywhere you find your podcast: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, wherever. Now, this is one that is important. This is a big one. You don't want to be the newbie that doesn't understand boat ramp etiquette. So that means don't cut in line, follow the traffic pattern. That means don't load your gear and your coolers right at the ramp. There's a staging area where you can ramp everything. If you listen to the podcast, I've got this tip on every single podcast because I think it's so important. So do all of your loading and getting ready, plug in the boat, checking everything, loading up all the gear, loading up even all the people if you want to, before you back down the ramp, and be as quick as you can. Now, you're a new boater, so take your time when it comes to actually doing everything, but don't take longer than necessary. People will give you a lot of leeway if you're doing a good job of following the proper procedures, and yet you're having a hard time backing it down. I've helped people back down their boats at the ramp before, just because they're struggling, and give them some pointers. If you have trouble backing, if you haven't mastered that yet, just take your boat to a parking lot on a day when that parking lot is empty, and just practice. Put some cones out. Make sure that you're cautious, that you don't go to a parking lot with light posts that you aren't aware of or not paying attention to, and you don't want to run into them. But I have taken many a person to an open parking lot and helped them back in and learn just the fundamentals. The less steering, the better. And always pull out, get it all straightened up, and just take your time. But follow the proper procedures, and you will always have a better experience and make less enemies at the boat ramp. And if you need help, just ask. Somebody is certainly glad to help you out if you're struggling, you need a little help or a little advice. Just make sure you ask somebody that uses the right terminology, so you know their experience and you know that they know what they're doing. Next, we've got the dock line. The old saying, if you don't know how to tie the knot, tie it a lot. So this is a cleat hitch, and it is way, way, way overdone, unnecessary. The little inlet picture with the blue line, you can see that that's a proper cleat hitch. I need to make a video showing how to do a proper cleat hitch and some fancy ways that you can do it. Make yourself look like an expert at the dock, that I learned when I was working at a marina when I was in college. But you can certainly tell somebody that's new to boating by the knots that they tie and the way they tie their boat up to the dock. So practice. Go watch some videos. There's plenty of them out there on how to make a nice clean cleat hitch like the one that you see. It's pretty simple, and again, it's something that I will get working on when the weather warms up here and get out on the water. Now, this is one that really drives me crazy, and it's because it's a safety thing. You can tell somebody's a newbie boater when you see people sitting off the bow of the boat with their feet dangling. Now, on this particular boat, their feet are way out of the water, and it's for some reason, it's legal to do this if you have that bow rail, but I've seen it done on pontoons, and it scares me to death. Even on this boat, if you hit a big wave and somebody catches their toe or their foot on that wave, what's going to happen? Well, somebody's going to get badly hurt. And on a pontoon or a tritoon, if you're doing it, even if you're going really slow, that water is going to yank you right in. And where are you headed? On a pontoon, you're headed right for the motor, and you're banging your head down the path of that boat. So please, please, please don't let your kids, don't let your friend Don't let anybody sit on the bow of their boat with their feet dangling over the edge in the water, especially on a pontoon. Now, if you're on a 40-foot cruiser, hey, you're probably a little bit safer, but I am not a safety first kind of guy. But I do not like that. It's an accident waiting to happen, and it could be deadly. So avoid that one at all costs. Now, we mentioned the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon Toolkit. You can grab that toolkit for free at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/toolkit. It's got a ownership calculator. It's got some special bonus videos and a 19-page toolkit that's going to help you find the right boat. If you're looking to buy a boat, you definitely want to pick that up. Now, another way to tell if somebody's a new boater is the way they handle their boat around the docks. You can see this guy clearly wasn't handling his boat the right way. This was actually down at the Lake of the Ozarks, where I've been boating since I was a kid. And this is a picture of a guy that got a little squirrely at night and ran into the dock, and this is what they woke up to the next morning. But when you're operating around the dock, a couple of tips for you if you are that new boater. Go very slow, and this is probably the biggest thing, is to keep your speed down. Go in gear and then right back out of gear. In gear, right back out of gear. In gear for control, out of gear to control your speed. And you'll want to spend a majority of your time out of gear. Now, if you're dealing with wind and you're dealing with currents and you're in that environment on a river at the coast, you got tides going, you want to make sure that you keep control of your boat, but you still want to keep that speed down. One of the things we're working on is a how to be the best boater on your water kind of training program on how to operate a boat the easiest way so that you can look like and actually have the confidence to know you know exactly what you're doing. Now, this isn't going to be a by the book U.S. Coast Guard approved. This is going to be a real practical boater's experience of what you need to do, and some tricks and some tips. And so be on the lookout for that. It's in the works. The next thing is it goes back to being at the boat ramp and launching your boat. And it is being way too far in the water. Now, this guy obviously is a little bit overkill, but backing your trailer too deep in the water is going to make everything you do on trailering more difficult. The boat's going to be floating too much. You want about, depending on your ramp, you want a couple inches to maybe even 12 inches, maybe 18, but probably about 6 to 12 inches is about right for most boat ramps and most boats. Tips of the trailer bunks sitting out of the water. That's going to do is it's going to allow you to hit those bunks, and there's going to be some friction to hold you in place. The biggest problem I see when people are trailering, other than backing the trailer down, is they can't get that boat to sit on the trailer properly. It's because they're too far in the water, the boat's floating the whole time, and as they go to pull it out, you never know where that boat's going to float. So you want those trailer bunks or the rollers just to be out of the water enough so that there's some friction to hold that boat where you want in the bow, and then as you pull out, the boat is naturally going to sink straight on that trailer. It'll make everything you do easier, and you'll look like a pro at the ramp, even if you've only been doing it for a couple of weeks. So next, this is a big one. I had to Photoshop this picture. You can see my wonderful Photoshop work. That is putting a wake out in a no-wake zone. That means a no-wake zone means you have to be at idle. That doesn't mean at idle and then just a little bit because I want to go faster and get out on the water quicker. That means at idle. Even going just a little bit, bumping that in gear and going just a little bit forward on the throttle is going to, on most boats, it is going to start putting out a wake, and it's typically much bigger than what you would expect. So the best way to get to know your boat in that situation is get out of the middle of the water and put it in gear, and then kind of based on the weight that you have, kind of go forward on that throttle and see when you start making a wake. And you'll notice it's a lot sooner than what you may have suspected. I've trained a lot of first-time boaters that have never run a boat before. And I've taken them out, and it's other than some of the few basic safety things like running your blower watching 360 degrees around you and knowing how to turn your boat and where the danger zones are. This is the next one that I talk to them about, and that is, hey, see when your boat starts making a wake, and when you think you're going really slow and you're being very good, you could actually be putting out the biggest wake that boat makes. So pay attention to it, get to know your boat so you understand when you're making a wake and when you're not. And then when you're in those no wake zones, when you're around other boaters, you're going through a spot where there's a big anchorage out, you're going through Party Cove, whatever it is in your area, you know what speed to operate out so you're not rocking everybody's boat and being a big nuisance and everybody pointing and saying, look at that guy, he's a noob. So finally, this is a personal preference for me. I did a lot of water skiing when I was a kid, and nothing would make me more upset than when somebody would come through. The water was glass like this, and there was a boat that came through really, really slow and just started kind of chopping up the water, doing some circles and some donuts for no reason other than they're just cruising and having a good time. And there was a whole big open lake. Now, it wasn't my lake. It was probably a little bit overkill for me to be upset about that. But as a new boater, you want to be aware of what other people are doing. Fishermen, water sports, people that are just anchored out. Give them a wide berth. If there's room on the waterway, give them some space. Don't come right up by them. Go to the other side of the lake if it's safe to do so. And try not to disturb what they're trying to accomplish, just like you would want them to do for you. And if you think about it that way, you'll avoid a lot of situations where you're disturbing somebody that you may run into at the ramp, you may run into at the bar or restaurant, and maybe a potential great boating friend of yours, versus going right through where they're trying to run and messing up their perfect water. So again, we're brought to you by the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon. You can grab the toolkit at boatbuyersecretweapon.com/toolkit. Subscribe to the channel. We're doing a lot more videos for current boaters. Always there's going to be training for boat owners and boat buyers. But be sure to check those out. We're expanding the catalog, adding more videos. YouTube's recommended a couple, and you can also check out the Magic Money Saving Method. It's a great video to make sure you don't pay too much for your perfect boat. Thanks for watching. Comment. Let me know what makes you think somebody is a new boater in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we will catch you on the next one. Remember, life truly is better on a boat.